What's going on, everybody? Is Barely There, back with another build guide. This time it is not a solo content video. This is not going to be a backstabber or a lockpicker video or anything like that. This one is going to be on the Archer Bard. This is going to let you deal out some decent damage while being a fantastic support for your group. It's going to combine, you know, a little bit of music with a little bit of deadliness with that bow, so that you can keep those enemies at bay and provide your group with some pretty beneficial bard buffs. But before we get started with the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications to the channel. It's going to help me out. It's going to ensure that Ultima Online content creators get put into the algorithm a little bit more, and it's going to make sure that you don't miss any of my Ultima Online Outlands content. So today we're going to be going over the build, the aspect, obviously, the mastery chain links that I use, a little bit into the Bard Codex and how I set it up for my build. We're going to go into a little bit into like effective barding level, how you can look that up and how you can utilize some other tools that some people have made so that you can find out, like, if you're just leveling your bard, you know, kind of, you know, where you could fit in so that you can actually effectively play your bard without feeling like you're out of your league. And I'm going to go over some helpful hotkeys that are going to make sure that playing a bard is pretty easy for you. So let's get into it. All right, so let's get into the build. With this build, I run 80 archery. Obviously, this is my primary source of doing damage. This is what I'm using to actually kill stuff. It gives me a little bit of standoff, so I'm not worried about being right in the middle of a fight. There's too many mobs and too many creatures out there that do AoE, diseases, and bleeds, and a lot of damage. So archery gives me a little bit of standoff so that I'm not the one who's taking all the damage, and I can continue to provide support through bard buffs and, you know, provocation and discording mobs. I think that's, if you're going to start playing a bard, archery is definitely the way to go until you get a little bit more comfortable with it, and then maybe you could switch over to something like a bard that runs maces or swords or whatever you want to do. But I think archery is the best way to play it. Then after that, I run 120 peacemaking, 120 discordance, and 120 provocation. This is a pretty standard for those that are kind of just starting off on the bard, with more links, with higher level aspect, and with higher level you know, instruments, obviously, and with that item ID skill, you can drop that down to like 110, and if you're somebody like my alter ego, or Ganthrone as he goes by, you know, he runs like 106.6, so you can tweak the build a little bit just based off of how advanced your build is. Right now, with my aspect tier level and my links and everything else, I have a 99.44% chance to bard as long as I've discorded the mob first. Without presuming multiple bard effects, I'm at an 89.9 or 89.21% success chance for barding. So my success chance is pretty high for barding, so I don't mind running 120s. It's going to give a bigger bard buff, and it's going to allow you to be successful on your barding attempts. I'll also go into a little bit why I don't have music on this build. That'll go into the Codex. Moving on, I have 120 chivalry. 120 shiv is going to give me some more buffs. It's going to give me a swing speed buff. It's going to allow me to heal myself a little bit. It's going to allow me to have an instant res. It's going to allow me to have, you know, close wounds, or excuse me, a bunch of different utility that's found within Shiv. And with 120 Shiv, obviously it gives me 12 symbols, so I can keep up my swing speed and have, you know, that heal in that critical moment that I need it. You can turn off the auto swing speed if you find yourself taking a little bit too much damage, and then you could just use it when you feel comfortable. But 120 Shiv is is crucial for this build. I think it's your main source of healing besides potions. Then obviously I have 100 tactics. You have to have 100 tactics if you want to go over 100 chivalry. It is a requirement. So if you want to do 120 shiv, you have to have 100 tactics for it to even work. And then on the build, I also run 60 item ID. What item ID does for me is it increases the, I guess, potency of my magical gear and my magical instrument. That's why I run item ID. It gives me stronger success chances just based off of having item ID. It increases the effects of magical items. So my supreme instrument is now better than a supreme instrument because I'm running item ID. Yeah, so that's the build. Now we can get into basically lyric aspect and what that does for you as a bard. So running lyric aspect on a bard, it's pretty obvious the choice. If you're like a super bard and you're full gold links, you got 30 of them, you can play around with different aspects because your bard reset, bard break, ignore chance is going to be mitigated by links, and your effective barding skill is going to be mitigated by links. You can get that through links, but for a beginner bard, you definitely want to be running lyric aspect. As you can see, I'm almost tier 12 in my lyric aspect. And what that does for me is it gives me 28% bonus damage to barded targets. It also gives me 35% for my break ignore chance and my bard reset chance. And it increases my effective barding skill by 28, which that's going to come into play here when I show you my player stats again. So you can see later on, I'm going to go over player stats and how to find mobs that are good for you to farm. But yeah, so lyric aspect is obviously awesome. You can run different aspects on your weapon, though. It doesn't really add anything to your effective barding. But remember, if you're swapping to a different aspect on your weapon, you're going to be splitting that XP. So I wouldn't do it if you're brand new. I would just run the lyric aspect on your weapon. It's a pretty strong proc that you get with Cacophony. There's nothing at all wrong with it. But if you're trying to level up something else and you're pretty established and you've got a higher level lyric, then yeah, feel free to swap this out for any other aspect on your weapon. It's not a huge deal. But yeah, for lyric aspect, overall, it's going to increase your barding effectiveness. It's going to reduce some of those bard breaks. It's going to help you basically just sustain playing a bard. It's gonna basically synergize with the rest of the build when it comes to your links and your codex. It's gonna let you control enemies a lot better, and you're gonna deal some solid damage. Obviously, lyric aspect, if you're farming with groups and stuff, it's going to increase the bard buffs that you have. So the more effective barding skill you have, the better the buffs are that you're going to be giving out to your group. So we talked about it a little bit before about the mastery chain and how that affects it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my mastery chain. So in my mastery chain, I run bronzes primarily for barding, and I do pretty well. I run 10 effective barding bronzes, 10 damage to barded creatures bronzes, and 5 bard reset bard or a break ignore chance. And then for my last 5, I threw in some melee damage ignore armor chance just to kind of increase the amount of damage that I'm doing. Every now and then you get that ignore armor and you do some pretty good damage. But if it was me and I was starting off on a bard, the first 10 links that I would definitely focus on is going to be my effective barding skill links. Those are the ones that are going to increase your ability to actually bard creatures. The next 5, if you're primarily farming by yourself, that I would focus on is probably the bard reset and break ignore chance. You want to get that percentage up as much as possible so that you're not getting bard breaks as much, and you're also getting bard resets more often, which allow you to go ahead and re-bard that mob. So the higher the percentage chance on your bard reset, you discord the mob first always. And if you're watching the video, I do provo a lot of them first, but that's because my effective barding skill is high enough with the creatures that I'm farming that I don't have to worry so much about it. I'm, 98% of the time, I'm probably going to get it on the first try. But I always suggest that you discordance the mob first and then provo. That way you get an increased chance to provo those mobs together. But yeah, I would definitely go first 10 effective barding, next 5 be your bard reset, break, ignore chance, and then start working on your damage to barded creature links. And then for your last 5, you can put kind of whatever you want in there. You could put in Dungeon Slayers. You could put in swing speed links if you got decent ones. I'm running the melee damage, ignore armor chance ones because those are silvers that I have. So that's why I'm running them, because I have silvers. Full disclosure, that's why I'm running those in the chain. But you can run a myriad of different stuff in your chain for this build. The next thing we're going to go over is the Bard Codex. So, like I was saying before, with the build, how I have 120 Provo, 120 Discord, and 120 Peacemaking, the reason I'm able to do this is because I have 6 points in Self-Taught. Self-Taught allows you to basically, if you get your 6 points in Self-Taught, it allows you to drop musicianship off the build and tweak the build just a little bit. So if you're watching this video and you're like, I'm just a brand new bard and what do? I would suggest running the 4 primary bard skills at 100, along with chivalry, archery, and tactics at 100, because that'll give you 7 skills at 100. And then once you get 6 points in your Bard Codex and you get 6 points in Self-Taught, you can tweak the build, bring those other skills up to 120, and then tweak the build towards what I have in my build. Because Self-Taught allows you to basically just eliminate musicianship completely off the build and put those extra 120 points elsewhere. The next thing I want to talk about that I run in my my Bard Codex is Revolution Song. Actually, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. I want to do Perfect Pitch. Let's do the next 6 points you should put in there is Perfect Pitch. This is going to increase your barding success chance. With 6 points, it's going to increase your barding success chance by 24%, which self-explanatory. You're successful 24% more of the time. So that's your next 6 points in your Bard Codex. And then the last 6 points, this is what I put in mine. You can swap this around. The Bard Codex is actually really good. There's a lot of really good options in the Bard Codex. I run the Provo creature. I run the Revolution Song because it increases the damage that the Provoed creatures do by 150%. I like running this on bosses because I Provo everything onto the boss, which obviously keeps those mobs from attacking my my party or my guild, and I'm doing more damage to the boss overall. So that's why I go 6 points in Revolution Song. The next thing I have is 1 point in Virtuoso, which increases after you do any barding action. As long as successful, you gain a damage bonus of 15%. There's some math in there, 15% times some other stuff. And it also gives you some damage resistance with some math involved. But basically it gives you a damage bonus and it gives you a damage resist bonus. So I put 1 point in there just to give myself a little bit of tankiness. And I also put 1 point in reverb, which gives me a damage bonus. With 1 point, it gives me a damage bonus of 5% towards the target of my most recent successful barding skill. So if I'm attacking a boss and I bard the boss and then I attack that boss, I'm going to do 5% more damage just outright. The next thing I want to talk about, and I think this is important, if you're playing a bard and you are just starting off, there's something you need to look at. That's going to be found in your player stats tab. If you go to your player stats tab and you go to the barding, and then you look at whatever your effective barding skill is. So if your effective barding skill without presuming multiple, right? So if you start off and it's 218 or 218 to 243, that's the sweet spot right there. Okay, so I want to farm mobs that have a creature level of that is going to be able to be in that percentage, right? So this is going to work for. So what I do is you can use this creature difficulty value meter right here, and you can scale this up. So let's go to presume multiple. Let's turn that off. Look at my success chance. Look at my barding skill and the creature value. So a creature value of 1,000, I have an 89.21% success chance to bard that. And I can raise this up. So realistically, at 1,000, and that scales, I think, all the way up to 10,000, it's about an 89% chance. Now, obviously, the higher the creature difficulty value, the more likelihood they are to break, which means they are no longer going to be pieced. So keep that in mind when you're deciding where you want to farm. But right here with a creature difficulty value of 1,000, I have about an 89% chance. So what I do is I take that information, and I'm going to drop a link down below, but I'm going to show you. There is a sweet guide that was created that goes dungeon by dungeon, and it shows the creature difficulties. So if you're just starting off as a bard and you want to look at the creature difficulties and see, okay, at 300, let's look at this blood curdler, which is down in Aegis 4, I believe. It has a 315 difficulty to that mob. So if you're looking at it, okay, I want to take this down, use your barding skill, right? 300 difficulty value. I obviously have an 89% chance of barding it. But if I were to take this chain and not have that chain anymore, so I'm losing that skill, that effective barding skill from my chain, I now only have a 77% chance on the first try with my skills and my aspect and everything else. I only have a 77% chance. I might not want to farm that because that means 1 out of every 4 times I'm going to fail. And that has a possibility of stacking multiple times. So I might not farm a mob that has a creature difficulty of 315. I might try to bring it down and farm creatures with a difficulty of, maybe 100 if I'm just starting off. And as I get more aspect and as I get more links in my chain and my effective barding skill goes up a little bit, then I can start going, okay, I can farm a little bit more difficult mobs effectively. If you're playing solo, that's a great way to look at it and go, okay, this is where I can farm, solo and be pretty successful. And as you get stronger, or if you're farming in a group, and you're not going to be taking that much damage anyways, you go ahead and farm with that group. You're going to be providing buffs, and if you fail, it's not going to be as lethal because of the fact that you've got somebody else to kind of bail you out and somebody else to kind of help you. All right. The last thing that I want to kind of cover with this guide is kind of like some helpful, hotkeys that I use. So if we're going to look at some hotkeys, some of the hotkeys that I use when I'm playing my bard, obviously I use the barding skills, so provocation, discordance, and peacemaking. I have those set up as hotkeys. Set up yours wherever you want. But some ones that I think are really useful to have, just so you're not clicking and dragging as much, is the one I like to use the most is target closest gray monster. This allows you to whatever mob is closest to you. If you set this to whatever, mine set the mouse wheel down. So if I just mouse wheel down with my using my mouse, it's gonna select the closest mob to me, and then I can use the bard skill that I want to. So I'll click, for instance, if I'm running through, I'll click peacemaking. It'll bring up the hotkey, like I can click it on a mob, and then I just scroll wheel down, and it's going to piece the closest mob to me. All right, so I just showed you, target closest gray monster, but you could look up next gray monster target. You could do this one too, so you can cycle through them. So you can do You know, if you've got a couple, it'll just basically rotate through all of them. I just do the next. I'll pull bars. I'll use drag bars and drag bars. But this is another helpful one too. Next gray monster target, that'll cycle through all the mobs that are on your screen, so that you can, you know, you don't have to drag as much as you want. If you got comfortable with this one, it's actually pretty good. But I don't use it, but just so you know that it's there. And then obviously attack last target. So I'll bard some mobs, and sometimes when I'm barding, I forget to actually hit the mob because I've just barded it. Most of the time, it'll automatically start attacking for me. But if I notice that I'm not attacking the last target, remember that that point I put in my Codex that allows me to do damage to the last barded target. So whatever the last target I barded was, I'll just use attack last target, and that will allow me to start attacking that last target, doing a little bit more damage to it. Other important ones to hotkey, specifically if you're only using Chivalry as your primary healing besides pots, I put Holy Light on hotkey as like my safety net heal. If I'm off cooldown on my pot and I need to give myself a heal, I would definitely suggest putting Holy Light on a keybind. And you can do other ones too if you're somebody that likes to have 40 keybinds. I just have the one, but you can go into your Razor and you can open up Chivalry skills, and you can just go ahead and keybind whichever ones you like to use. You can also create a macro or a hotkey for your weapon specials. That's super simple. All you gotta do, not customizations. All you gotta do is gotta go into commands. Here it is. So if you want to hotkey your weapon abilities, your skirmish, your full draw, or your repeater, all you have to do is go into your options, go into macros, and create a new macro. Name it repeater or full draw or skirmish or whatever you want to, and then you could just use this bracket to enable your whichever weapon ability you want. So skirmish being 1, full draw being 2, and repeater being 3. Obviously, you could do this for any weapon codex. So even if it's not archery and it's macing or it's whatever, this weapon ability bracket right here, this command will allow you to utilize whatever weapon ability that you can use at the time. So yeah, we covered the build, we covered the aspect, we covered the links that I suggest that you use, setting up the Bard Codex and how I do it, regardless if I'm a new Bard or if you're a little bit more established and you want to use the build that I'm running. How to look at your effective barding level and how to kind of figure out what creatures are good for you to kind of farm solo. And we went over some of the hotkeys that I use for my build. Yeah, the Bard is super fun when you're farming either solo or in a group. I really enjoy it. I don't think there's a group out there that will turn down a Bard. So if you want to get out there with some group content and do some stuff, definitely get out the Bard and get out there. It's great for crowd control and buffs. Once again, if you found it, if you liked the video, don't forget, hit that like, subscribe button, and let me know down in the comments if there's anything that you would tweak with the build, or if I missed something, and maybe leave a comment down there of what other builds you'd like to see next. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.